Without a doubt, writing a review for the Cambridge Advanced Exam is the most difficult thing you could possibly imagine. Or is it? Well, that's a dramatic opening. The idea, though, is that a review should capture the attention of the reader, should lead in with a bit of drama. In this video, we're going to look then at the review as a possible writing choice for you in part 2 of the writing paper in the Cambridge English Advanced Exam. So let's have a look in detail then at some of the things that you'll need to do. The first thing, let's look at just the nuts and bolts. What do you really have to do for this review? Well, when you see the task, read it carefully and underline the content points. You're not going to see a task that says, book reviews wanted, write your review of a book. It's always something a little bit more complex than that. So it's really very important that you look at the rubric and you underline those content points. And then you want to write your review in 220 to 260 words. So let's think about the target reader. And who is it that will read your review? Well, it's somebody who wants to make an informed decision about something. And this is very crucial, that it's an informed decision. The target reader will need enough information to decide for themselves if they want to read the book or see the film or listen to the music that you're reviewing. If they don't have enough information to make up their own mind, they won't feel like they are fully informed. They also need to be entertained. We tend to read reviews partly for the information that they hold and partly for pleasure. So let's think a little bit more. What is an informed decision? Well, let's take science fiction as one example. Let's say that you review a piece of science fiction and you say that you hated it. Why did you hate it? Well, you don't like science fiction. Well, that's not going to be good enough for the target reader. Maybe they love science fiction. Maybe they want to know more so that they can decide for themselves. So whenever you write a review, you need to be specific with the information you give so that the target reader can choose whether this is for them or not. I don't listen to Coldplay these days, but if I see a review praising Coldplay's music, that's fine, because it's for somebody else, it's not for me. Here's an example. So you look at the rubric, and it says reviews wanted. There's going to be a book review, but it has to be something slightly more than that. So they want 3 content points. They want to know what was surprising about the book you read. They want to know if it gave you a new understanding about the book's topic. And they want to know why you would recommend it to others. So those are 3 content points. You need to address all 3 of those if you want to get the full 5 out of 5 and the content mark. So here's a suggested structure to help you through the task. First, give your review a heading. It should just be the name of the thing you're reviewing. If you look in magazines or newspapers, whenever there's a review, it's very clear right from the beginning what it is that you're reading about. Now, I've seen examples in my own students' work recently where this wasn't done. And in one example, I had to reach the conclusion before I learned the name of the book that the person was reviewing. You can't let that happen. So put the title at the start, give it a heading, just the name of the book by the person. Or if it's a film, just the name of the film. Keep it very simple, but that way it's done. You've already conveyed that information. So the first paragraph then needs to grab your reader's attention. This is a kind of piece of creative writing. We don't have articles at Cambridge Advanced level, we do have reviews. And this is a good chance for you to get playful with the language. Having a creative introduction like at the beginning of this video will help draw the reader into the text. So then the second and third paragraph should develop the review and cover all the content points. And the final paragraph should contain your recommendation. If there's no recommendation in a review, it's not a good review. The reader must leave the review knowing certainly, with great certainty, exactly what your point of view is. So here's an example. There's a kind of skeleton structure. I've reviewed a book called The End of War by Colin McNabe. It doesn't exist. There's no such book. If you spend time trying to think of a book that fits the review, you might waste 10 minutes of your time. You might start writing about something and think, actually, it doesn't really fit. Doesn't matter. Get something that just come up with something that fits the task. So it starts with this kind of creative narrative. War surrounds us. Not a day goes by without conflict on the news. You begin to wonder, blah, 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 and then you start to think, okay, well, I want to know more about this book then. The first paragraph then, after that, the second paragraph in the text looks at why the book was so surprising. Then the next one after that can look at the follow-up content point about what you learned, how it covered the topic. And then the final paragraph will be the recommendation. So here you can have some language ready at hand. You go into the exam thinking, I'm going to write the review. Think about how you're going to make that recommendation. Like here, something I've got at the end is McName's fascinating investigation is not to be missed. This expression, not to be missed, is quite a nice, juicy chunk of language. By all means, use it in your review. So let's focus on then the different areas that Cambridge will mark. First of all, the content. You should be able to get all 5 content points. These are a lot of points that you can just put into your bag. Cover all the content in the rubric, expand on each point, make the target reader feel fully informed, and that will be it. It helps usually if you just make something up in terms of the content, but if you can think of a book that fits the bill, great. In terms of communicative achievement, we always need to keep that target reader in mind. Imagine that you're telling somebody about this book, but they're busy, they're easily distracted, they've got their phone nearby, they might just pop off and start looking at 9gag instead of listening to you. So you need to be able to hold their attention, but think about talking to them. Use that kind of language. Hey, listen, I've got a great book review that you've got to listen to. Are they going to learn enough in the review to make a good decision about the book? Keep them entertained so that they don't drift off. Their attention must be fixed on the text. And to keep them entertained, you want to use some nice creative language. Think about changing the length of your sentences so they're not all uniformly long or short. Have a bit of a mix. Use some conditionals, they're always pretty interesting. And remember, at a most basic level, your review needs to look like a review. And this has happened to me, or rather to my students, that they've written a great book review, but they started it with Dear Sir / Madam. They wrote it as a letter. This isn't a letter that you're supposed to write, it's a review. Make it look like one. So let's look at the organisation very briefly then. Starting with a heading helps in the organisation. You can kind of follow on from there. Each content point needs its own paragraph, and in that paragraph you develop the idea, you introduce it, you add detail, you bring it to a close. That's a paragraph. Finish with your recommendation. Don't put your recommendation in the middle somewhere, because remember, a lot of target readers skip to the end. They want to know, just give me the bottom line. And if your recommendation's somewhere lost in the middle, and they're looking at the end, they won't actually get it. I mean, in the real world, that is. In an exam, the examiner's going to read from start to finish. But in terms of the organisation and what is expected, recommendation at the end, and make it fully developed. Don't just say, yeah, this book's great, read it. Give a reason. Again, just kind of summarise the main points. And there we go again with this idea of varying the length of your sentences. You know, I want to really stress this. There's a great picture somewhere on the internet where they show what happens if you write a series of sentences, each with 5 words. It gets boring very quickly, it's monotonous. So break them up. Have some longer sentences and then some short ones for dramatic effect, for example. Then use the linking words nicely to glue your ideas together. If something is surprising, use a contradictive linking word. However, despite that, or on the contrary, lots of words available that you can use here. And that brings us to the language. Try to include some sophisticated language. If you can think of some cool expressions to describe books and films and music before you go in, do that. Learn nice words like phenomenal, or involving, something like that. Look at other reviews. Take note of the things that catch your eye, because if they catch your eye, they will probably catch the examiner's eye as well. That's what you want. Keep control of your language. It's nice to have great, exciting language, but remember the basics. Remember don't forget that little S at the end of third person singular. I know at Cambridge Advanced level I shouldn't be saying this, but for some of my students I still have to. But don't stick just to really simple forms. Now this is one of the reasons why I tell my students to write their pieces of writing double spaced. Because if you write, let's say, a really simple thing just here, and then you've got some time at the end of the exam, you go back into it and you think, okay, here's a simple sentence. I really like this book. And you think, okay, let's make it negative and put it in that way. I couldn't have liked this book more. Now compare those two. I really liked this book. I couldn't have liked this book more. So we've gone from a simple, present simple sentence to this modal, it's negative, it's comparative. You can do that in the exam. You get the information down on the paper, and as long as you don't make a complete mess of everything in front of you, just change little things here and there, add a little bit more dynamism and sophistication. So that gives you then hopefully a good idea of what you need to do for the review in the CAE. So that hopefully gives you a good idea of what you need to do for the review in the CAE. Here is a question for you. You know how to write a review, I hope. You have to think of a book that fits the task I introduced earlier. Write its name in the comment below and give as well a few words about what surprised you about it and your recommendation. Use the best language you can. And I'll go in as well and I'll have a look at the comments that are produced and I'll correct the language, I'll suggest alternatives that might be better, and together we can make this into a more kind of communal resource for everybody to use. Okay, so until next time, thank you very much. Goodbye.